Morning everyone and welcome back to the vlog. I thought I'd set myself a bit of a challenge today, and I've just brought with me my 90mm macro lens, a tripod and a piece of tin foil, which I'll explain about a little bit later. But I don't know about you, but I have a favourite lens that perhaps 80% of my images are taken with, and that's my 70 to 200mm lens. So I thought I'd push myself a little bit today. It's tempting when you're out in an environment like this to sort of automatically go to your favourites, but no camera bag, just the 90mm lens. Let's see what we can find. So when you're out photographing with a macro lens, obviously we're looking at the world in miniature, our landscape. Normally we're looking at big landscapes, big trees, big mountains, big lakes, big lochs. But when we're photographing on the macro lens, it's all about small detail. Now, most of the images that we see with macro lenses are the eyes of an insect or the sort of fine stems of the flowers. But it's also about textures and about reducing the image that we're looking at. So anyway, I've come across my first shot, which is actually a small wooden anemone which is just sat on its own in amongst the moss, which in itself creates this beautiful image. We've got some sort of moss on the bank here, we've got some brown leaves which add a bit of splash of colour, and in amongst this vast woodland we're just narrowing in on this small intricate detail. So this is my first image, and you can see we've got this little wooden anemone here just on his own with these beautiful green leaves that are gathered around it, and we've got some nice browns. It's really important when you're shooting in this close that you think about the sort of colours and the surrounding area. When we're photographing on the 90mm macro lens, our depth of field is very shallow, so we're not going to see a lot of this detail, but we are going to see that splash of colour. So you can see at the back of the camera that I've got this beautiful wooden anemone just on its own. It's got some droplets of water just on the edge of it. Now at the moment where I've got the camera positioned, it's not very exciting. I really like these green leaves as a splash of colour down the bottom here. And I like that sort of autumnal browns, not that it is autumn, but those sort of brown colours that we've got from the leaves behind. But what I want to do is just bring a little bit more into that image. So what I'm going to do is drop the camera down a little bit further so that those green leaves are perhaps a little bit more of a feature of colour just in front of my image. So I'll just adjust the camera and then we'll look at that composition again. So you can see I've had to be a little bit creative with the tripod here. I'm up against some rocks, I've got moss everywhere, and I'm trying to get as low as I can. So I've got the legs of the tripod, real spread eagle here. And I'm just realigning my composition just to bring a bit more colour into my shot from those green leaves. So anyway, I'll show you again what I'm looking at on the back of the camera. So I've got myself really low now, and I've managed to position those green leaves just in front of my image. And I've actually positioned myself so that there's actually more green now behind the anemone, just to really sort of help punch out those colours. I think it works better than the browns, but it's a real soft, delicate image, and because of the sort of macro lens, we're getting all of the tiny little droplets on the white petals themselves, and it's going to be a really nice soft image. Now obviously when we're shooting on macro and we're working at this sort of level, it's really important that there's no movement, there's no wind. So again, I'm using the remote so that I'm not touching the camera in any way, and yeah, here's the first shot. So I've just readjusted the camera. Now you can see I've zoomed and focused right in on those beautiful petals on the flower, and we can really make out the water droplets. You can see that the background is just a blur and splash of colour. And what I've done is I've positioned the camera so that I've got a real nice dark background that is really emphasising the beautiful whites and light areas of the actual anemone itself. And now I have to be really careful not to move, because any slight movement is going to be picked up, and I want this image to be nice and sharp. What I really like about macro photography is you don't have to travel far. I mean, I've come sort of 20 yards and I'm already looking at my next image. And it also means that you can pretty much photograph anywhere. You can photograph in your back garden, in your local park. You can even use plants that are actually in your house to get those small, intricate details. I would say though that it is torture being in a forest and limiting yourself to one particular lens. It's incredibly tempting to sort of think, whoa, some beautiful trees. I've actually got some nice mist and clouds behind me, but it's good. It really does test you. When you're photographing really close-up images like this, obviously the background is really important. And you can see from this image, I've got these soft leaves that are coming down with these droplets of water on the leaves. It's absolutely beautiful. But you can see just underneath there's just a little twig that is just breaking into my image and breaking up that color behind. So what I'm going to do is just remove that so that it's nice and clean. We've just got these speckles of green behind, and then we're focused on these soft leaves. Just walking past this pine, and some of this bark's absolutely incredible. There's some amber undertones to the bark with the darker colours on top. Now, because I'm photographing with my macro lens, it's important to try and get that lens as level as possible, because if I start to tilt it, then obviously my focus is going to really go out at the slightest tilt on that lens. So I'm just positioning the camera now. And it's still really important to think about composition, even if we're just looking at shapes and textures. So I'm positioning the camera to get those nice shapes within my image. Definitely a portrait shot is going to work well with these, perhaps trying to get some of the darker tones of the bark with the lighter bark inside. I'll show you what I'm looking at on the back of the camera. So you can see on the back of the camera, what I've done is I've positioned my image so that I've got these darker bark tones coming around the outside, almost framing those soft amber colours behind in the lighter bark. Well, I'm guessing perhaps the outer is peeled off a little bit. And it's all about the sort of textures and the tones in this image. And I definitely think the portrait orientation works really well with this, and the framing of the image, as I said, with those darker barks. There's a little bit of reflection coming off of some of the water and moisture on the tree, but unfortunately I don't have a polarizer that fits this lens size. So again, we're adapting, we're working with what we've got, and we're really pushing ourselves. So anyway, here's the image. Water droplets on the back of leaves may be a little cliche, but why not make the most of the opportunities that you're presented with? You can see I've positioned the leaf just central with the droplet down the bottom here. I think this is going to be a better image portrait. I like the splash of colour around the greens. Probably my droplet's a little bit low. I think I need to sort of bring that up a little bit there. Of course, every little minute movement makes all the difference, which is why this sort of geared head works really well in this instance. But you can see just every little movement is being picked up on the back of the camera there. So it's going to be a tricky shot, just waiting for everything to stop moving. And of course, if I knock the branch, that droplet's gone. So I've got a short amount of time. It's definitely on its way. But we'll take a couple of shots and check on the back of the camera to make sure that it's nice and sharp. Every now and again, I just come across these beautiful small violet flowers in the forest floor. They're incredibly difficult to photograph, partly because they're so small and also because it's very difficult getting in at them and getting at those petals. You've got that lovely violet cover petals with that soft sort of yellow stamen with the slight white of the petals coming out from the center. It really is beautiful, but the actual focus is the really difficult point on this because I've got such a shallow depth of field, and I'm definitely trying to want to get the center of that flower nice and sharp. It's a little bit tricky. There's a bit of a breeze, and so I'm just waiting, and I think sort of the trick here is perhaps to take lots of photographs, and hopefully one will be nice and sharp. really is a microscopic world that we're photographing. If I zoom in on this water droplet that's on this piece of grass, you can see all of the reflections of the other grasses and the trees and the mosses around it. It's incredible scale. This is the time of the year where the bracken's just starting to come through. And when it's finally fully grown, it can be an absolute pain. We'll lose all of this beautiful forest floor and it'll be an absolute magnet for ticks. But when it's just sprouting through, it really is beautiful. It's curled up, slowly opening, and you get these soft fibers on the leaves which really give it some texture and makes for a great photograph, getting in really close and just capturing those opening shoots. Now you can see on the back of the camera in this image, we've got lots of beautiful light coming in from the side here, but it's incredibly dark around the back and underneath, up the sort of shoot, if you like. And that's where the tin foil comes in. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reflect some light using the tin foil back up underneath the plant. And if I move the foil, you'll see there we are. You can see how we've punched light back into our image, just up underneath it. And all we're doing is reflecting the natural light back up underneath the beautiful shoots here, just to really sort of level out the light. There we are with no light at all. Here we are with a little bit of foil just tucked underneath, just adding that extra little bit of light. And I can adjust that myself just by pulling it away a little bit, reducing the amount of light. But it makes an incredible difference, just being able to reflect some light back into that shot. So another wood anemone has caught my eye, and this time it's in amongst some moss on a branch that has come down, and it really is beautiful. I love it when the new anemones are just beginning to sprout and you get those soft leaves coming through, petals. And what I really like about this shot is just in front of it are a couple of these leaves that just really make up the image and make it incredibly delicate. I'll show you what I'm looking at on the back of the camera. So you can see on the back of the camera, we've got this beautiful flowering wood anemone that you can just see the soft, gentle white petals opening up. But then we've got these beautiful green leaves below, just coming out of the soft bracken here and moss. And it really is a soft, delicate image that is just incredibly well balanced, with the wood anemone just sat above the green leaves and that soft, gentle stem coming up and around. And it's a little bit cropped seeing it on the back of the camera here, but it's a little bit wider. There's more space left and right on the actual final image. And I love those soft greens behind really gentle and delicate. And so anyway, let's get that shot while there's no wind, no breeze. Well, I think that's it for this episode of the vlog. But what have I learned from today's challenge? And I think one of the key things is it's definitely been beneficial not bringing my other lenses with me, because I think there's been way too much temptation. I would have got out the 70-200 and I'd be shooting big trees and sort of big landscapes. But this has really honed me in and made me focus on the small details around me. Let me know in the comments below which is your favourite lens to use. I'd be really interested. And anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the vlog. If you have and you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Hit the bell notification. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.